If you've had any cryptid encounters that you'd like me to share on here, email me at jttosstories@gmail.com. Story 1. This story comes from a Reddit user named tkane5188. I feel it's just an obligation to say that I, too, am a skeptic. I've been trying to convince myself that I didn't see a large, hairy, humanoid things in the woods all those years ago, but I did. This was somewhere around the mid-2000s when I was in middle school. I was staying at a friend's house for the night in the backwoods of Michigan. For privacy's sake, we'll say that his friend's name is Jay. Immediately behind Jay's house were a few acres of woods that led to a lake. If you went straight back into the woods from his backyard, there was a path that went straight to the lake, which was intersected at 90 degrees by another path about halfway to the lake. Probably a quarter mile from the backyard to the lake. If you went straight down the path from the backyard, then turned left at the intersection, the path was a downhill grade, followed by a flat portion, followed by an uphill grade, which eventually ran into a 2-lane country road, one of those 55 miles per hour ones that just goes on for miles, with not so much as 1 or 2 houses. It was late in the afternoon, and the sun was just starting to set. We, being middle school boys, were running around the woods all afternoon, playing with fake guns and stuff. Good times. Absolutely nothing leading up to this point was strange. No weird, eerie noises, no odd, unidentified sounds, no paranoia or ghost stories. Prior to playing in those woods, just 2 bros running around having a great time outside. Well, we were basically pretending that we were army guys. At one point, Jay decided to run off, saying something about flanking the enemy. He dashes off to my left. I started creeping through the woods, pretending to shoot bad guys down as I went. I found myself standing at the intersection that I described earlier. Straight forward was towards the lake. To the left was the path that went down, then back up to the road. I was standing, looking diagonally between the 2 paths, when I hear some faint sound slightly off to my right, towards the lake. What I saw made my whole body tingle in the worst possible way. About 50 feet, maybe more, maybe less, towards the lake and just behind a tree, I see this face with a shoulder and arm peeking around it. The most terrifying part was that it was probably 2 or more feet higher than you'd expect a human's head to be. Before I could even properly observe the face, which was undoubtedly hairy, it snapped back behind the tree, as if it realized that I could see it. The color of the figure that I saw was light gray, like your average cement sidewalk. Because of that, I wasn't really sure what it was. My first couple thoughts were sheer confusion and fear. Then, in my frozen state, I remembered that Jay was wearing a shirt almost exactly that shade of gray. I tried whisper shouting his name towards the now hidden figure. I called out maybe 2 or 3 more times, when off about 50 feet behind me and to my left, down the path leading towards the road, Jay emerged from the thicker trees. This was the complete opposite direction from the figure I saw, and there's absolutely no way he could have snuck around me in that short of a time frame. To further drive the point home, it was fall, and the ground was covered in layers of dry, dead, deciduous leaves. The crunch from the leaves was very distinct, and you can't avoid it. Anyway, Jay had heard me call out, and from just down the slight decline, he looked up and asked what was going on. I pointed off into the trees where I'd seen the figure and said at normal volume, "I saw something big over there." As soon as I finished the sentence, the very second, whatever I'd seen started stomping off towards the road, parallel to the path we were on, but probably 50 to 100 feet deeper in the woods. Woods which were too thick to see anything at that distance. For some reason, we decided to run after it. Jay and I were athletic. Well, as athletic as 6th or 7th graders could be. We played tons of sports, and we were pretty fast kids. We were hauling it down the path parallel to the beast as fast as we could sprint, and yet it was absolutely smoking us. The road, if I remember correctly, was a solid quarter-mile from the intersection of the two paths. We had maybe just finished running down the downhill portion when this monster was already to the road. And believe it or not, we could tell where it was from the crunching leaves. And you could hear its massive footsteps clear as day, even while running. When we realized that it was getting to the road, we also realized a car was coming. I kid you not, as soon as the crunching leaves stopped and the thing stepped out onto the road, the car slammed on its brakes and pounded on the horn. Its tires screeched for a solid 3 to 4 seconds at least. When the car finally stopped, we heard the leaves start crunching on the other side of the road, and then the car slammed on the gas, peeled out, and just took off. Keep in mind that we could only all hear this. We didn't see the car, so there's no way we could ever track the person down to ask what they saw. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are stories out there on the internet somewhere about the time they almost turned a Bigfoot into roadkill. Anyway, we finally made it to the road and crossed to the other side. On that side, it was mostly flat woods as far as the eye could see. Nothing but trees, and more trees. No sight nor sound of the beast. We waited for a bit, then went back home. A few things to note. Was it Bigfoot for sure? I can't really say, but what I do know is that it was tall, hairy, gray, and 100% bipedal. There was absolutely no mistaking the sound of it running. It's funny though. There's descriptions, videos, etc. of Bigfoot walking and moving far faster than a normal human, but I'm almost sure this thing was sprinting. The speed at which it reached the road was utterly unbelievable. It ran a quarter mile in probably close to 20 seconds, and trust me, I understand just how absurd that is. Sorry for the long story, y'all, but if anyone has ever heard similar descriptions of Bigfoot or other cryptids, let me know. Also, if you have any hunch that it's something else easily explainable, please let me know. I've tried to convince myself it was something else, but I just can't. Story 2. So, back in 2007, I was 8 years old. My grandparents and I lived up on a mountain in northern Georgia in Floyd County, and our property was against the Bartow County line. It's a warm September night, just a couple days after my birthday. I'm up in my room playing Call of Duty on my Wii, and my grandpa walks in and asks if I can take the trash out before it gets too cold. I say sure and pause my game and slip my shoes on. I walk out into the garage and open the garage door to throw the bag into my grandpa's truck. I turn on the light on the outside of the garage and walk to my grandpa's truck. Me, being 8 years old at the time, I was afraid of the dark, so I kind of sped walked and threw the bag in and hoped to make it. However, I did not make it, and I heard the bag land on the ground beside the truck. My head drops and my heart starts to pound for some reason. Like, I know that if I go behind the truck, something will get me. You know, the basic 8-year-old paranoia. So I run to the back of the truck, pick the bag up, and toss it inside, and turn around to go back into the garage when I see something. The way my driveway is, it turns off a gravel road that curves left and up a hill. The hill smooths out a little, but doesn't level off completely. Right where the hill gets less steep, I see a dark figure just standing there. In the light coming from the garage, I can just make out its silhouette. It appears to be a person at first, but then my eyes adjust on it, and I can vaguely make out hair covering its entire body. I stand there frozen with fear, like if I turn my back, it's gonna sprint to get me, so I hesitantly walk backwards toward the garage while keeping my eyes on it. It seems that every step I take, it takes one also. I finally reach the hole where the garage door is placed and run as fast as I can inside. When I get inside, I run into the living room for my grandpa and say, "Grandpa, get the gun. There's something in the driveway. It's big and it's walking on 2 feet. I don't know what it is, but it scares me." So my grandpa got the gun, and we go outside on the front porch, which is a good 40 yards closer to the part of the hill I saw it at, and it's not there. My grandpa says, "You sure you saw something?" I don't say anything. I just nod. He drops the gun from his shoulder and says, "Come on, you haven't put a new trash bag in the trash can yet." We both turn around and walk back inside. Several hours go by and nothing else happens, until about 1 a.m. I wake up from having a dream of what I saw. I lay in my bed and look at the curtained windows and can see that the front porch light is on. I find that safer because it acts as a sort of nightlight for me. So I'm laying there, looking at my window, when I see a huge shadow walk in front of my window on the outside, and I mean huge. The window sat about 2 feet off the ground, was about 4 feet tall, and was about 2.5 feet from the ceiling. And this shadow was tall enough to cast a shadow big enough to where it looked like someone was sliding a wall past the window. I could hear the boards creaking on the front porch and could see how wide this thing was from a side view. This thing, whatever it was at least 2 feet wide from the side, and it was absolutely huge. I didn't want to go get my grandparents because I didn't want them to get mad at me for waking them up at 1 a.m. and for them to come out and see nothing. So I just watched this thing go back and forth past my window, and before too long I fell asleep again. Fast way forward to the summer between my sophomore and junior year in high school. I'd moved off the mountain, but I was still going to the same school. Anyway, like a week before school got out, my best friend Kevin and me thought that it would be a good idea to go up to the mountain and see if we could find it. Without hesitation, I jumped at the opportunity and said, "Oh yeah, let's go." So the following weekend, after school ended, I met up with him and we brought some camping gear along with us and also some food and a 30-06. I tell him that we can camp out at the house. I saw this thing and he agreed it would be the best place to start. So we make it to the night and he's like, "Yo, let's get out and walk around." I say okay, and we both get out of the tent. I instantly felt like I was being watched. I shouldered the rifle and felt the adrenaline filling my veins. Kevin puts his hand on the barrel and lowers the end of the gun to the ground. "Don't do that. You'll make me nervous." So we start walking around the trees. We find some small game paths and hear a few noises, but we don't find anything. So we both look at each other and decide it's not worth it. So we start walking back to the tent, which will take at least 30 minutes. On our way back, we can hear things in the woods that sounded like tree knocks and whoops. We get about 100 yards from the property we were camping out on, and suddenly a rock flies through the woods and lands within 10 feet of me and Kevin. Then it's like it just unloaded on us. Rocks were landing all around us with not much time between each impact. We hear all sorts of whoops and hollers coming from different directions, almost like we were being surrounded. I tell Kevin to run and that I'll be right behind him. So we start running towards the property and hear trees snapping behind us. I stop for a split second, raise the gun, and fire a shot into the air. Then all goes silent. Kevin stops just in the clearing of the property and looks back at me. I look back at him, and we both run onto the property and book it out of there as fast as the pickup truck we drove will take us. I haven't been up there since.